I am so excited to be here. I am talking about innovation, but in a perhaps slightly different way than you would expect. I'm going to talk about whack-a-mole. Do you remember that from 1983, downtown, Hindley Street? So whack-a-mole, an arcade game where dirty little moles pop up from their holes at random. You get 60 seconds. The more you whack, the higher score wins. So the player's job is to smack the living hell out of them and force them back into their holes. So yeah, downtown, I remember as a 13-year-old girl playing it. I say as an awarded innovator that innovation is absolutely like a game of whack-a-mole. You only get a limited time to make a difference, and in that time these dirty little moles pop up and try and threaten your path, threaten your vision, threaten your dreams. Your job as an innovator is to know which ones to smack down, which ones to put your energy into, and which ones to let go. So today I'm going to talk to you about 4 moles that have popped up along my journey. Now, I will say one is personal, the rest are career-based, but without a doubt, these are the 4 moles that have, I guess, challenged my path to innovation the most. But I thought I would start by giving you my whack-a-mole points tally, if you like, as I stand here today. Some of the things that I'm most proud of in my career. Some of the things that I have been awarded innovation awards for. I have a PhD in media science, and I am the director and associate professor of a large-scale research centre here in Adelaide at UniSA in digital media and ad tech. I am considered a global authority in my space. I get to travel the world and speak to some of the biggest, I guess, advertisers and ad tech organisations in the world. I've written an Oxford University published book, and it's a bestseller. My work's been noted, apart from academic publications, my work has been noted in some of the coolest publications in the world, including Forbes twice, Time, Huffington Post, Bloomberg Business and others. I am lucky enough to have been on some pretty cool speaker circuits. So I've presented only this year at Cannes. I was actually nominated as one of the 8 most inspiring women, so that was pretty amazing. I have been to AdWeek New York. I have been a keynote on the Google speaker circuit. I know. I know my boys particularly love that one. And my work's been integrated into teaching at amazing institutions like NYU, Cambridge, Oxford and others. So I guess, as I stand here today, you're probably thinking, and then, I forgive you if you are assuming this, that I've led a fairly easy Adelaide life. Privately schooled, maybe a mansion in the hills, maybe a pony. But the reality is that, if there is such a thing as a picture-perfect Adelaide life, mine has definitely not been one of them. The first mole that I had to deal with in life actually was child abuse. From the age of 14, I was the target of sexual and emotional abuse from a significantly older male in our church youth group. I remember while I was at school, my friends were listening to Culture Club. I'd be listening to rhetoric about why I needed to keep this special relationship secret. Now, my parents actually knew, but turned a blind eye, which made it that much more complicated. I endured about 7 years of abuse. My teenage and youth essentially robbed. My confidence was absolutely shot, and my path seemingly chosen. So I wanted to just segue slightly. Interestingly, even up until a week ago, I had colleagues and some friends say, Karen, do you really want to include that as one of your moles that you've dealt with? It's really personal, it's going to be filmed. Would it affect my CV? Could it affect my future commerciality? Do you know that 1 in 3 women before their age of 16 are affected by sexual abuse? So I say, you know what, I owe it to the 30% of possibly you in the room that have had this mole pop up in their lives. I owe it to them to show them what life can be like on the other side. You don't have to be a victim. And I say bollocks to intolerance, that's kind of who I am. It's backwards. Thank you. So now I can relax. I've got that one over and done with. Okay, so what happened next? The reality fairy, as luck would have it, came to my dreams at 21. You're all laughing because he's not cute and pretty like a princess, but I'm so not cute and pretty like a princess. So this is what came to my dreams at 21. And he said to me, Karen, you know what? You have two choices. You either do nothing and be dragged along a path chosen for you, or you challenge this norm and you forge your own path. And you know what? I chose the latter and smacked that mole down hard. Was it easy? Absolutely not, but challenging the norm never is. So I got on a Greyhound bus one weekend with one suitcase of clothes and I went to Perth. I bunked in a share house with a bunch of girls and I did a series of multiple retail jobs just to survive. One of my most glamorous retail jobs, you might think I look glamorous today, but this was my job when I was very young. I worked in a costume shop and part of my role was to sniff the armpit of the costumes to see whether they needed dry cleaning. So that's my life, yep. It was probably at this point I realised that education was a key to my future. What I did fail to say is that I had to drop out at 15 to manage the circumstances of my childhood. So I didn't even finish year 10. So it's probably at this point I realised education was the future. I was never expecting to get to PhD level. I was just hoping for a year 12 certificate. So education became my passion and a little bit of an obsession. So I did every course I could do while I was in Perth that I could afford. I applied for every single scholarship and grant I could possibly find. And I loved it. I was really good at it. And I will say that absolutely education, even in my early 20s, it helped me get my first job in media, which is a sector that ultimately became my passion. So life in my 20s, and that's not my legs, by the way. Life in my 20s and 30s was good. I quickly climbed up the corporate ladder. I quickly became responsible for huge budgets, lots of staff. I had done a couple of degrees by then. I did a lot really quick. I was married at 29. I had two beautiful boys in quick succession, only 1 year the gap. I know, what was I thinking? But then midlife crisis actually crept into our house and I found myself a single mummy with 1 and 2-year-old boys. Now, this is not the mole, although that wasn't a particularly pleasant time. The mole actually appeared when I tried to return to work. I had to go back to work to earn money. I'm sure a lot of people understand that. So the mole appeared, I call it inflexible flexibility, when an organisation on the surface touts flexible, family-friendly work arrangements, but the reality below the surface is very different. Karen, if you want a flexible arrangement, you need to take a lower role, I was told. One with fewer responsibilities, less front-facing, I was told. I don't understand why flexible to some means not committed. To me, it just means flexible. Anyway, as I faced a future as a single mum with relatively limited career options, the reality fairy returned. He said, honey, you've been here before. He said, do nothing and be dragged along a path chosen for you, or challenge this norm and forge your own path. So I chose the latter and smacked that mole down hard. Was it easy? No, but challenging the norm never is. So at 35, I decided to embark on a completely new career, one that suited these beautiful, tiny little babies. Thank you. But also suited me and helped me forge my path. So I actually applied for a scholarship and won a scholarship for a full PhD in media. And my goal was to ultimately become an academic. Was it easy? Not really. I had to do my PhD hours during baby sleeps and childcare, but I was passionate about media and I was super excited for a career that would be flexible around these boys and one that I could do here in Adelaide. So it's probably at this time I started to realise that the reality fairy was just my subconscious, reminding me of my non-negotiables in life, the things that I hold dear, the things that when missing I get an uneasiness in my stomach. These are the things that absolutely forged my path, and these are the things that every single mole that I face, but also every opportunity, is measured up against. Now, everyone in the room, that's different, but for me, these are, I need to be where my boys need me to be, and at the moment, that's Adelaide. I deserve opportunity to grow. I must work with visionaries, and I will do stuff that incites passion. By the time the kids were in school, and I was well into my postdoctorate, I worked out that digital, new media, social media was the future of advertising. Did I foresee the scale of this out-of-control ad tech industry? No. But I did instinctively know that this would be an area that an academic, even in Adelaide, could cut through, could make them up, could be innovative. Now, in fairness, this was quite a few years ago, before social was, all the rage. But my vision to expand my research agenda was met with a less than warm response. Facebook is a fad, I was told. Digital media is not the future of advertising, I was told. Right. This is what I call visionary impairment. When those in authority can't see the wood for the trees, when they're overly focused on the opportunities of the now, the shiny things of the now, and don't sort of consider future possibilities. And in digital, if anyone's in the room in the digital space, that's quite prevalent in digital. So the reality fairy returned, and he said, you have two choices: be dragged along the path chosen for you, or challenge this norm and forge your own path. Of course, bam, I smacked this mole down hard. Was it easy? No, but challenging the norm definitely never is. I had lack of internal resources, so I actually had to align myself to external visionaries, actually in ad tech startups overseas, who supplied me with data and resources. The result, in 2012, I was invited to present my fad research in front of 3,000 people in New York. I stood up there and I talked about engagement and challenged the Facebook advertising model at the time. Now, interestingly, the timing wasn't great for Facebook, but it was quite serendipitous for me in that it was during their IPO period. So to say that my findings went viral is an understatement. I was actually quite publicly credited as having a role to play in their less than stellar IPO. A girl from Adelaide on the global stage. So by 2013, I had written a book, my profile was growing, I became famous, I guess, for being a truth teller, myth buster in the content marketing space. I had been invited to some of the most amazing organisations around the world, and by that time I'd been on the Google speaker circuit. But something was wrong. The more my profile grew, the more restrictive my work environment became. I wanted to expand my research area, move more into technology. You're being greedy, I was told. So some people in the room might recognise it as tall poppy, but today I'll call it patriarchal establishment, where those in authority hinder your growth either through obsession with control or having little tolerance for competitors. And again, I'm sure that there are a lot of you in this room that have had bosses like that. So I say bosses like that, moles like that, are absolute cancer to innovation. So in the back of my head, do nothing, be dragged along a path chosen for you, or challenge this norm and forge your own path. And my non-negotiables, definitely no opportunity to grow, definitely not visionary. So, smack it went down that hole. Was it easy? No, challenging the norm never is. I had to find an opportunity where I could do digital research with global touchpoints and in Adelaide. Not an easy feat. So what I did, I thought the solution would be to set up my own research centre, one that fostered growth in the sector. It was an 18-month fight. I had a lot of sleepless nights, let me tell you that. I firstly had to find my own seed funding, And I did, and to put it into context, I won external money. In today's money, I won more money than actually Google did in 1998 for their first seed. I also had to sell the case to the university and manage the significant politics, and I did that by aligning myself to visionaries higher up the food chain, those who fostered personal growth and encouraged me to grow, and those that related to my vision. So the result, earlier this year, I established the Centre for Digital Video Intelligence, which looks at media impact, and we have a huge group of mathematicians, econometricians, consumer behaviour, media PhDs. Only about 3 months ago, we launched it in New York City in AdWeek with one of my long-term research collaborators who happens to be a global ad tech company. So, yeah, I stand here today and I say I am a winner of my game of whack-a-mole. My non-negotiables are intact. Will there be more moles? Yeah. But I know how to play the game now. I know that no one sets my upper limit. Only I do. I know that when my non-negotiables are the basis of my decisions to either smack moles down or take on an opportunity, then they'll be the right decisions. And I know that challenging the norm is never easy, but challenging the norm is absolutely what leads to innovation. So in closing, I thought I'd ask you to come along a journey. Those from the 80s might recognise if I could go back to the 13-year-old me whose life was about to change, whose first mole was about to appear, what would I say to her? I'd say, what a feeling. I can have it all. Take your passion and make it happen. Pictures come alive. You can dance right through your life. Thank you.